Hey guys, welcome to my masterclass for Motion Design School. I'm going to be talking you through how to make this infinite crash scene that I posted on my Instagram. Talk you through all the steps and tips that are involved in making that into a seamless, endless animation. So I'm going to be using models that are readily available online for you to use that we'll supply you with as well. So I've got Stormtrooper and this golf cart with a very similar sort of setup and effect. So yeah, I'll guide you through rigging a dynamic ragdoll in Cinema 4D and the advanced tips and tricks that I use for setting up the car and the whole scene in general. First off, I'll talk you through rigging the dynamic ragdoll, taking the limbs and separating the arms and everything and adding connectors and springs, and also for the rigging of the car so the wheels can fall off. The dynamic proxy mesh of the car is very accurate and doesn't go crazy when they hit into each other. There's no glitching, and there's breakable wheels and the roof can break off as well. And then there's setting up the actual scene of the crashes in this endlessly looping environment, and also talk about tips and tricks when it comes to lighting and rendering and comping, how to create that illusion of infinite dynamic chaos. So yeah, first off we'll dive in and rig our Stormtrooper, adding connectors and springs, and the next step will be rigging the breakable dynamic car. The wheels can fall off, the roof can collapse, and then we'll set up the actual crashing scene, so the endless repetitions and the camera move and the whole environment. And then I'll talk about the rendering and the comping and lighting techniques that go into creating this infinite dynamic simulation that seems to go on forever with no scene. But yeah, hopefully you'll have a lot of fun and we'll dive straight in. So I've got the scene set up with our Stormtrooper. I've kind of gone ahead and deleted each of the arms and the legs, purely because we can just duplicate them at the end. Once we've rigged these up, we can just flip them over. So let's start applying dynamics tags and everything to it, and as we go along we can prepare each part to be a dynamic object. Just notice this bit needs to be attached, or in the hierarchy needs to be down here. So what I'd normally start with is just making the torso dynamic, just as a collision object, just so we can use it as an anchor for the other parts and just check everything's working as we go. So yeah, I've split that off from the other geometry, and then if we go, let's do the head and the neck first. So I've got the head here and the neck. So we want to first off connect the neck to the torso, obviously. So let's go to the side view, and the pivot point in the neck seems fine. We can always move it to where we think it might be better. We can put it there, and then start adding connectors. So let's call this neck connector. Drag neck into there, and then need to attach that to the torso. Give the neck a dynamics tag. Just leave it on automatic. And then we turn the bounce down and turn the friction up to about that. And I get rid of these as well. And then I start giving them, I always kind of control what mass I want them to be, just gives you more idea of how stuff is going to react when you start doing your simulations. I think I've already given, I don't know, touch this one. So I give the main torso, say, a mass of 3. Let me just do these the same that I've done already. So back in the neck, We then have the neck connector. We need to turn that around to be on this orientation. We've got them in there. So if I press play, and I've got it going around. Yeah. Oh, there we go. And obviously we don't want that to be able to flip all the way around, so we give it a bit of a spring. I'll just put that hierarchy there, call that neck spring. And then we'll change that from linear to angular and put in the same torso and the neck here. Set the rest angle. Let's just turn this up so we can test it, get the damping up a bit as well. So normally play around with these, I can never quite remember which orientation axis to use, but it obviously depends on your mesh, so that looks right. And then we can now make the head, do the head now. So it's where it gets slightly trickier, because obviously with the neck connector, it's just easier to keep on ignore collisions and not have to worry about that colliding with the torso. But then when it comes to the head is going to be connected to the neck. So any, there'd be a way around it, but the way I'm going to do it, the head will be able to collide with the chest and the torso. So I want to split the head up a bit so it's got more of a realistic collision boundary. So what I mean is if I just put the automatic tag on that, and we put in another connector for the head. But I might just move that down a little bit down there or something. Just call that head connector. And so we connect the head to the neck. And so his head is desperately trying to move away from the chest, which it is colliding with. So you can see here, because this collision boundary here, maybe I just need to change. I'm going to change the collision margins a little bit, bring them down, because I think they need to be more like that as we're working in more of a realistic human scale. So you can see how this boundary here is intersecting or trying to push away this boundary, because obviously this concave section of the helmet is just registering as one object. So what I do for that, obviously either you could go into this and press move in mesh, and then that's better. But I tend to just not use move in mesh because it quickly makes your scene very slow and it's just fairly unreliable. Even if you were to go into expert and put these options up, once you get a few of these dummies in the scene, it quickly becomes a bit unmanageable. So what I do is just move that back to automatic. And so I'd make a copy of this, of the head, and call this dim dynamic. I'll just hide that for now and turn that dynamics tag off. Let's get rid of that one for now. So I would go into this mode and I would cut this head up into 3 bits or 3 or 4 bits, so we can separate this chunk down here, this bit at the back, and then the main part of the head. So, well, then I'll show you what we do with that. So if we just do that quickly, we really don't have to be very overly careful. So select polygons, right click, split, and then delete. Oh, sometimes does that. Delete. And so we've got the chin there. You could even go through and call that chin. It might help us out later. Keep track of everything. And then just hide that. And then let's do the same for like the back of the head. So right click, split, and then delete. And then call this back. Hide that for now. And then this bit here, let's just do it like that. To make it even, you could do this little bit here as well. I'll just put mid split, delete. Doesn't really matter what that's called. And then I think the rest of it is fairly decent shape already, so we can just have that as main. So what I do then is that you just have to quickly dive into points mode and just double check, get rid of all these floating points that are left behind. So you go, select them all, right click and optimize, gets rid of them. Actually no, go back a step. Just make sure in the optimize that this is set really low, so I have it set to that. If you had it set higher, it might start merging points together that are close together, so just bear that in mind. So you can just select them all and just double check that there's no points floating in space, because those points will disrupt and register within the dynamic simulation. So let's make a new group. So let's call this head, and then if we shove everything inside here, move the dynamics tag to there, and also bring in the actual visible head. So these will just work as proxies, and actually hide that. So in this tag, we want this tag to register everything underneath it as a compound collision shape, and if you put individual elements on to all, then it's going to register all these parts in the dynamics simulation. And then if we have this one turned off, not enabled here I mean, and also I tend to do this just in case, it's then just going to register all those parts as one object, but taking into account that they are separate, and this gap will no longer be taken into account. So to show you what I mean, let's get the head, bring the head connector up here, and you can just drag that group into there, because that's now the dynamics group. And if we press play now, you'll see that without having to use a move and mesh tag, you've still got this accurate shape. I just find that it's a lot quicker to work with, it's a lot more accurate, and you don't get the kind of jerky, glitchy problems that you get with moving mesh when you use that. It's good for certain things, but I don't tend to use it for these ragdoll simulations because it quickly gets a bit unmanageable. One thing I forgot to do is just make this visible again and this one invisible. On these it's quite useful. So you can see each part still has the same original axis center as a main head, as the original head. So if you press this, I've got a shortcut here, but it's a center axis 2. Just click that and then it will kind of make the axis more centralized within each point. I just think that helps the accuracy of the collision of the dynamics if it knows where the center is. So that's just worth noting as well. So we can turn that back off, turn this on, and then let's move on to the arms. So I'll just show you with the arms, separated the geometry. So you've got the hand, the forearm, the kind of upper arm, and then this bit, it's just kind of a bit of shield detail that we'll incorporate as well. And then I've added, I'll just change that higher up to show you. I've put a sphere in here purely because obviously when this arm's separated from the body, there's then a gaping hole in this, and so it's just good to have that sphere in there that we use as the actual inner geometry, so it's not just a hole when the arm might raise up or something like that. So if we go into the front view, you can see the geometry there. So what I'll do is just minimize the head for now. So I've got the shoulder grouped based on the center of that sphere, which is more or less in the right place. Maybe it could go a tad higher. Just move this out. Potentially that could go up there. Let me just double check that's not intersecting anything. That's fine. So we want to make this shoulder sphere. Well, what I'm going to do first, actually, because with this bit it's quite tricky, because we're going to, instead of using a ball and socket joint, we're going to use two hinge joints, and the intersection between the arm and the torso is going to get a bit messy unless you do this. So what I'll do actually is, first off, actually copy this tag to the stomach, and we use the stomach as the anchor for now, because we actually need to make the torso enable the dynamics. So let's actually put a connector for the torso and get that so that just doesn't fall over when we're trying to use it. That's going to decide that arm's not in the way. So we'll just decide we want the stomach to meet the torso, let's say about there. Put that under there, call that stomach connector, or torso connector rather. And so yeah, we've got stomach there, torso, and then do the same thing, get spring in there. Oops. Like torso spring. It's good to name everything as you go, as you know, otherwise it quickly get very confusing. So, which one did I put it there? Yeah, stomach first, torso there. Let's put 50 and 50, let's see what happens. So that's obviously on the wrong axis, you can tell straight away. But I always press set rest angle. That looks right. And obviously this, because we copied it over, it has the same mass, and that's good to keep. So yeah, so then back to the arms and the torso. So the upper arm, so we got the shoulder. We need to put the upper arm within the hierarchy of that shoulder. And then I need to put the shoulder in the torso. And we need to put the torso to inherit the tag of individual elements, or self-collisions, let's turn off. So that's okay. So we need to start connecting everything together. So shoulder sphere, shoulder connector, we call that. So shoulder sphere connected to the torso, and then the upper arm needs to be connected to the shoulder sphere, but from the same kind of location in the geometry. So we'll call that upper arm connector. So we want that, and then this, I guess it's unusual to have this bit of extra geometry, but it's just part of the armor. So what I'll do actually is make another connector for that one as well. We can just reset the position there. So let's just call that arm cover connector, and just make this fixed. No collisions. Cover. Oops. Upper. So that's not quite staying. That's because I didn't copy that, I just moved it. So there we go. It's all connected up. We just need to decide on what orientations we want these two things to use. So the reason I don't use ball and socket is because I find it's hard to work them with the springs, and if you want to set the arms in a certain position, you obviously can do that with a hinge and a spring, but when you get the ball and socket and the free dimensional axis, that messes up a bit with the spring. So this is how I can give it more control. So I just need to decide which axes we want these to do. I think it's good to have one that's kind of forward and backwards for the arm, and then one obviously that lets the arm go up and down. So let's do that. We can always change it. So what I do is, so for the shoulder one, that's actually fine. This upper arm one, let's move the orientation, let's say there. So I'm going to press play now. It's kind of acting like a real, well, not real at all, is it? But let's put some springs in there to just limit the amount of movement it can do. So shoulder spring, angular, just reset position. So we need shoulder, torso, so that's the y-axis. We probably need to change this to y. Just put that up to 50, 50. Oh no, he's not happy with that. Let's try the Z. Okay, so that seems better. Sometimes it's trial and error. So then copy that spring here and call this upper arm spring. So that's upper arm, shoulder sphere. Let's see if it's a Z-axis again. Seems good, and you can test it by changing that. That's all starting to look pretty good. So it's all wobbly as hell. Sometimes it's best just to put the damping up when you've got a few springs connected to each other. Oops, not stiffness, the damping. I'm just thinking as well, this torso, the mass of this torso is applying to the top of the arm as well, but that's fine. So there, when we put the damping on, it's a bit less jiggly. Just want to notice it. I never did the head connect. I never did the spring for the head. Let's just do that quickly. So yeah, he's a bit more sturdy now, and if I turned that off, we don't need that anywhere near as strong, just let's put 5, and then for the neck strength, I don't think that needs to be so strong as well, I should say, but turn the damping up. So yeah, we just need to do the lower arm as well. So when it gets to the lower arm, this obviously isn't as close to the torso, so we can make this, we can start giving these their own dynamics tag, but still within this hierarchy, purely so we can pose the arm in a particular position if we wanted to. So I'm just thinking the elbow. So let's call this elbow pivot. Forearm on the hand, and then let's drag that dynamics tag. Just make sure this is set to none for inherit, and we'll just turn the mass down to 2 on these ones, and then same for the hand. So we can start applying the connector to forearm, but if we reset the position within that null, so it's the same there, and call this forearm connector, forearm connected to the upper arm, and then the hand, I'll come to that in a bit actually. So let's just see what that does. Yeah, that's cool. What we could do as well is actually do similar thing to what we did with the shoulder, is get a put a sphere just inside there, just so it never kind of fully opens up to be just an empty void, because obviously these aren't robots, they would be a person inside, but if we just give a hint of it's not an empty shell, it's got something in there. So that's fine, we can just, yeah, it's good to put that, probably, I think stay there actually. No, that's silly, because yeah, so that's obviously getting information from there, so if I put that actually in there, that'd be better. Maybe turn that up a bit. 5.5. No, let's just keep it at 5. So it doesn't open up, but we can also put, we need to put spring on this one. Forearm spring. Forearm, upper arm, change this to Z. 25 and 50. It's working, you can double check by changing the rest angle, you can see. So I'll show you why I use this pivot. So for example, if we wanted to move the arm into that position, we can do, and then just press on the spring, set the rest angle, and it's then at the angle we want it to be at. And then I can just reset that. There we go. So let's do the hand. I'm just thinking for the hand, we can do the same thing we did for the shoulder and give it two axes to move around. So I'm just going to make another sphere to use as a kind of wrist object that we can grab up and put in here. I've just got this black material here that I'm just using for the inner objects. So let's go to this view just so it's a bit clearer. Just move that, just hide the hand for a second, move that into this hole in the wrist. Somewhere like there, I think it's going to be good. Just look at this view again, bring the hand back in. So if we just put that in there, we can just see whether that looks like a natural position for the hand. It's very, very good. I might just bring that out a tiny bit, just cheat it, just so it's not going to intersect quite as much. Just have a look here. Yeah, I think that's fine. So we want to, we'll copy this tag. How should we do this? We might have to do the same thing and have the, I know what we need to do. So we need to do this. We actually do need to turn that back on, apply tag to children, individual elements all. I'm just going to do a similar technique to what I did with the head for this. For this sphere, we'll just make that ignore dynamics for that one, but for the wrist sphere, we actually need that to be enabled for the multi-axis thing. So, wrist sphere will add a connector, hinge again. So what axis do we want this? I think we want that to be kind of enable the hand to flop up and down. So roughly that kind of orientation. So that would be wrist sphere from the forearm. It's called like wrist connector. And then for the hand connected to the wrist, we'll do it this way around so the hand can twist around. So would that be good? So that the hand can go up and down, and it can, no, maybe it's not, it's the other one I think we maybe need. So the hand can go up and down, and we also want the hand to be able to go left to right. So we want it actually more like that. So let's try that. The hand, oops, to the wrist. Let's save this. So let's just double check that is actually working before we put the springs in. Yeah, so that looks pretty decent. So let's just go ahead and put the springs in for these two. So wrist spring. So that's from the forearm to the wrist sphere. Put that on 25. And as we get lower down this kind of chain of connectors, the damping becomes more important because it starts getting a bit crazy. And then let's do the hand spring. So hand sphere. We're probably going to have to change these to the Z. Oops. See how that works. Again, I'm just changing this just to test it. Seems pretty good. Is that ignoring all collisions? Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's just try this one as well. I think it seems to be a bit of a problem there. It does seem to be not wanting to go past there, so let me just figure out what's going on there. Oh, so that's a problem. This isn't actually within that hierarchy, so we just need to drag that in there. Put it down at the bottom here. So now that should be... Alright, so that's because that's right down there. So there we go. It's nice and floppy. And if we move that, it's not going to chain. It can intersect the hand, which is kind of fine. Like, it's, if we do turn, just put that back. If we turn this up to quite strong, then you can pretty much guarantee that that's never actually gonna, that's not going to be a problem in our simulations, because the hand always wants to get back to that position. The same for the wrist. Let's just turn that up as well. But it's a bit less of a problem with this. You can get away with that. What a queen. Right, so let's just reset that and that. So that's the arm done. So that's pretty good. So this arm group is within the torso, so let's create a null that's in the middle of the torso that says arm, arm left, that is, from his point of view, I think. And put that within there. And then if we copy that and put arm right, and then we can go down here, change this to scale, and apply that, and now we have two lovely arms. Perfect. So I'll show you that's why I do that. Just get rid of that. If I was to just go into here, that doesn't work. He's really not happy about that. And if I show you in visualization what's going on, the meshes aren't lining up with the geometry. It's just a right mess. So yeah, that's why you have to actually do it that way. You have to do it within these options here. So it's, when you actually look at coordinates, it's still 1, 1, 1. And that's perfect. The legs now then. So I've got leg upper, lower, foot. And that all needs to be connected to the groin. Well, I guess it would make sense to just do the middle section too. So we've got stomach, head at the top, neck, torso, stomach, groin. So let's now actually make the groin the thing that we're anchoring everything to. And then make the stomach dynamic as well. That mass. So yes, let's call it stomach connector. Oh no, sorry, did it wrong. Let's We need to keep the torso, obviously. Let's make another one, stomach. And this stomach spring. So torso is up there. I think this needs to. Well, this needs to go forward. Ah, yeah, but what we need to do for this one is, so the torso's on that axis, let's put the stomach on the other axis so we can have the ragdoll can twist around as well that way. So stomach needs to be going from stomach to the groin, and the same for the spring. So stomach to the groin. Set the rest angle, let's see what happens there. Yeah. I can twist around there. So let's just put that to 0. I'm going to turn that up to 150 and this quite damp as well. So there's something when he's leaning back quite a bit there. We need to give that a lot more strength, because otherwise you're going to start seeing inside the body. What we can do to help counter that is, let's just hide this a minute and let's just fill in that hole. So in the torso, let's go into polygon mode and just right click and do close polygon hole. That's a really cheap way of doing it. And then we select, set selection, copy this black tag over here again, and just make sure that that bottom bit is black so we don't get the UVs on there. And while we're at it, I guess we might as well do it on this one as well. Let's just see what happens if we do it on there. There's a polygon hole. There we go. And the same thing, just set selection, and we just put that black material there. So that'd be good. So if he does happen to bend over double, you don't see right up inside his chest. Should do the same with this. So let's just see that that's all looking all right, isn't it? So this bum bag on the back is connected to the groin. Let's just give that its own little, I think maybe that's just the one for the mass, and none there. And we'll just give that just a fixed connector, just connecting that to the bum. And what might be quite nice as well is just that, yeah, that. We're going to have to turn off on ignore collisions. Not sure that's broken down, probably from this hitting it, but that's fine. And what we can do, it'd be nice to have something that can break off if we need. So braking force, let's just make that something actually quite high, so 50,000. And so like if they do, when we do have these guys violently crashing into each other, it's just a nice detail that can fall off. So now to do the legs, what we're going to do is have the same as how we had the arm connected to the chest. It kind of has the same, uses the same tag so it doesn't all collide. So we're going to start off with the groin. So I've got doubled up there. We've got groin with the bum pack at the back. So this groin is going to actually, we need the stomach to be the anchor now. So let's just put the stomach off and then bring the groin back on. Let's just see what happens there. See how the groin falls down. Just to reattach that. There we go. So the groin, we now need to have that as apply tag to children, all self collisions off, and then we'll bring in this. So this will be the leg left again. Bum bag's up there, leg left, the top sphere for there, and then the upper leg here. So let's actually just turn that off a second. So the top sphere there, we're going to have this connector here. So I can turn side to side. Actually do it like that. That kind of angle. So we call that top leg sphere connector. For that sphere from the groin. How does that look? Yeah. And then the upper leg will have the connector in the same place, but just different orientation. So we want that leg to be, actually for the sake of that groin, because we want this leg to be able to kick up like that. So that's going to be at that kind of angle, so the leg can go that way. Just thinking. More, that's fine for the leg, but for that's upper leg connector. For this one, I'm just thinking which way around do we want it to be able to go. The leg can already go that way, so we just need another. I know it needs to be that way. It needs to be like that, so that we can have movement that way as well. And then the leg can go forward and back. So that's good. Let's see how that's looking. So yeah, that's fine. Let's get some spring action in there to just sort those out. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So let's get the springs in there. So we just need spring, top leg, sphere, spring, angular, groin and sphere, groin, sphere. This is probably going to be on the y-axis. X-axis again. Let's find out. 50, no, 50, and then 50. See what happens there. Yeah, that's cool. So, and then for the upper leg connector, so that's upper leg there, and I think this will probably be Z. So let's just do our little test again. Should I say testicle? No, I shouldn't say that. So that's cool. And then for the sideways one. So it's just a really good way of giving us control of where these are. So what we can do is, so that would be, put that within that hierarchy. So when it comes to positioning the legs, we can have a bit more freedom of how we position them. So like, for example, if I was like, I want it to be sat in that position, we can then do the same thing there. Actually, that kind of thing. But we don't quite want it there yet. So yeah, that's cool. So now let's do the bottom part of the leg with the knee. So I'm just gonna put this, I'm just gonna make a null. Oops, not a cube. A null. We'll call this knee. And put that where we want. We think the knee should be about there, I reckon. And then we want that within the hierarchy of the upper leg as well, so we change this. Yeah, that's fine. I think we should do the little trick of having the sphere inside there again. The black material. We're going to be about 3 centimeters. Nope. Just so yeah, when you see inside, it's not just an empty crab's leg, it's got some volume inside. Just put that there, and there. Fill that space for a bit. So when we that's not quite that, is it? I think what we need to do is maybe I don't know, it's okay. Let's make it smaller here. I think we actually have to make the put it there. And then if you put that sphere in the middle, I think that's going to be better actually. It's not quite where the new, well I guess it is where the new bone. It's got some intersection here. It doesn't really matter too much, because we've got our good old friend the spring to help sort it out. So I'm actually, for the lower leg, I'm going to give it its own tag now. So we're kind of free of the, yeah, so I'm going to give it a mass of 2. That's all good, that's all good. And stop this sphere having any say. So we just need to get a connector in there. So knee connector, just put that in there. So connecting the lower leg to the upper leg. So that happens there. That's cool. We can just hide this box for now actually. Put that there. And then while we're at it, let's do the shoe. Let's call that knee sphere. Actually, while we're here, we'll put this spring. Knee spring. Lower and upper. Z. Let's put that 15. There we go, perfect. So the foot, I can give that a massive 1. Just going to change the axis point to more where the heel is, and put it in a group that says ankle. And then let's just see how that moves. Oh, that's going to move. Yeah, that's fine. Let's do the same trick with the sphere. Let's call that ankle. So when we do that now, this is a bit better. So let's just do this. So foot connector, foot spring, and we want that to be the foot in the lower leg. Let's see what happens here. Cool. So that's great. So yeah, we can make the right leg now. good. Chill out. Let's save that. So here's a kind of moment of truth. We'll see if it's all worked. And so just prepare that yourself that once the whole thing collapses, the springs decide that they don't actually like the orientation you put them in, or the axis that you've told them to move in, and they'll freak out. But let's see what happens. That's pretty good. Let's just turn the friction up on the floor so he didn't just slip. Make the box just a bit. Just put that right up so his feet get stuck. That's cool. So his head's not happy, so that's going to be the first thing we sort out. That's because I must have forgotten to do the density. So, I mean the mass. So the neck is at 2, the head should be at 2 as well, I reckon. Yeah, that's great. That's worked really well. So now we've done that, we've got these guys that we can then play around with. So next we'll make the actual car for them to go in, and then get into the chaos. So now that we've rigged our Stormtrooper, we can now start on the golf cart. So I've got this 3D model here that we're just going to go through and separate into its different parts, attaching the wheels, attaching the poles and the roof. We'll make the roof and these poles detachable and breakable, so upon impact there's bits of the golf cart that can break apart. We'll do the same with the wheels, and then for the steering wheel we'll get that so that can turn around realistically. So let's start off with the actual main body of the golf cart. So if I go into here, I'll just hide everything else apart from that for now, just to make it easier. So yeah, I've got it in the main cart sections. I've already kind of organised it. So this will be one solid mesh, but because it'd be quite nice, obviously Stormtrooper's going to sit here, we need this to register as a whole, and these bits as well, so we might as well, it'll depend on each object, but let's just go through. And so what I do is, let's make a copy of this. So main cart sections, we'll call that visible. And then we'll actually make that invisible for now. And we don't have to worry about subdivision surfaces for any of these, for any of the proxy. So I'll just drag those bits out for now. So I might go into side view. So we might find out that depending on the shape of these, like for example this shape I think is probably fine to leave as it is. Obviously this, it's got these convex or concave bits, but it's fairly minor. I don't think that's going to worry us too much. So maybe we could just, this sticky out bit, maybe we just separate into those two bits. So if we just use polygon select tool and just select this sticky out bit, maybe with a few more of these bits. So split that and delete. So we've got dashboard 1 and 2. We need to do this points bit as well. And let's just make sure both of those parts are properly got the axis centered. And then once we've done that, we can just hide that for now, and then let's just work through it. So this underneath section, I think that's going to be fine as is. Let's not worry about that, so that's fine. And then also got this cube here, which is also fine. Let's come back to that bit. Let's just work through it logically this way, and then this way through the hierarchy. So we've got the back underneath. That's the same sort of deal with that cube inside. That's fine, just to treat as one shape. So we can hide that as well for now. And then the floor. That's fine, hide that. And then this back cover here. This is where it gets it's your own preference really of how close you want the proxy mesh to be to the actual mesh of the car or object you're using. I think I might split that into two because it has this major bend here, so just do what we've been doing from before. Just select this back edge here. Split. Delete. Just make sure. Points. I may fast forward certain bits of this because it's fairly repetitive stuff. It's easy once you've done a few just to kind of whiz through and do them all. So back cover done, back bumper, I think it's the same sort of deal. It's worth always checking in the 3D view as well. So it does have this slight curve here, so maybe it is worth us in the top view to separate in the middle out anyway. Right, now I'll get back to this under section. So I think you can see there's a bit at the front and the back there. It's pretty much just hiding the inside of the car if it was to flip over. And as it is the back wheel arch as well, so yeah, we do need to. We can just deal with that in this view. Just ignore that cube for now. I think that cube's fine how it is. Let's just call that under section cube there. So for this bit, it might be easier to hide everything else. Yeah, because it's just obviously just one thin line for those polygons. So let's just go through and do that. So obviously I'm looking at this curve and thinking if that was a proxy mesh, I mean an automatic tag on that for the dynamics tag, I think obviously it's going to regard that as one shape. So normally a curve like that you'd want to split into 3 bits really. And then this, like this guy here. Optimize points on this section. All good. And this back bit, it's called the back tray. So yeah, this is one where we do want to separate into the 3 sides and the bottom. So let's just do the same, make everything hidden apart from that. Obviously making use of the different views. So the front section I think is slightly easier than the back, so we'll just do that one first. So I think we need to split it into obviously these 2 fin bits, this top bonnet, and then the leftover side bits as well. Well actually, yeah, that's what we need to do. So go into this view, and obviously in this view if we select that and split that off, it's going to have 2. Let's actually split both those bits off, so we need to do that again with that resulting part. these two bits. So now we have this bit. We wanted to separate the, like I was saying, the top of this bonnet from the rest of it. Follow in polygons wherever you can, I guess. Split 3. Oh yeah, just want to do this, tidy up a bit. So we've got bonnet. That's cool. And then for this bit, let's separate these side bits and then split the front into 2 bits, I reckon. Again, let's go in this view. And the front section would have split into 2. There we go. Front bit. All good, hide that. And then just this back section, which is probably the trickiest bit. Just purely because of this bit here, it'd just be nice to have it done properly, so you don't have any limitations when it does come to the simulation. So what I'd probably do first, normally start in side view, as we have done before, and probably break it down into this bit, and then maybe top and bottom there. Concentrate on the bum. So again, I reckon obviously another tool we can use on this, which might be useful, is the Fong break selection on this bit. I'll put that at 20 or something, and then obviously you can just select that back edge, which would be a handy tool. And then these two, another trick is if you just select one polygon and press UW, it selects everything that polygon is touching as well, which is sometimes handy. Right, so I just get that rogue polygon there. So what's going on there? Oh, because we're into the old points thing. There we go. On to the next one. So I can reckon on this middle bit again we can use our friend Fong break. Might just turn it up a bit. And then, yeah, these are the 2 bits, fine how they are, so we do the old UW. Now this one looks complicated, but I don't actually think we need to worry about the hole there where the seat is, so maybe we don't have to worry about this one too much at all, really. Save that, and if we then apply our tag to this, remembering to do compound collision shape, individual elements all, we can already drop that in there. Let's do that as well, let's say dynamic. Make sure we got the tag on this to make sure that's not affected, and it falls through the floor. Have the tag there. There we go. Perfect. Let's double check. Yeah, so everything that should be hollow is. That's perfect. And now we could do the seat. So the seat's actually pretty decent. Let's what we'll probably do is drag the seat into here, and then for the proxy of it, we'll just copy everything out of these subdivisions, put it in the dynamics group. And the roof is quite easy. So I just copy that out of there again. Roof, dynamic. I reckon we just separate this section from the back section. And call this the whole thing the roof, and drag that in it. And just drag these tags as well, doing the same thing as what's happening for the body. Press play, it'll fall down onto that. And then we have the 4 poles holding the roof up. So what I'm going to do for these, we want these to be able to break off when they crash. So we're going to make these dynamic. Turning off that tag. Obviously when you press play, they're going to all break apart, shoot off. While I'm here, let's just double check we got it all at the right mass. Let's have the car mass at 10. It's like a standard thing. And start angular and linear damping, just for when these do crash into each other at high speeds, these can just suddenly fly off and go pretty crazy. So, actually, I think we could probably just have these. I find the box shape is insanely more reliable than anything else, and I don't think you're ever going to worry too much about these poles rolling away. So, for each pole, we want obviously a connector at the top and the bottom. So I'll call this back pole fix connector bottom, and then we drag that down roughly to there, change this to fixed, drag that in there, and then we want that connected to the main cart. Let's call it main cart body. Ignore collisions. No, we don't want that. Let's turn this up to a high braking force. This way is a bit of a problem because obviously we want it to be able to brake, but if ignore collisions is on, they'll be able to fall for each other even when they are broken apart. But obviously these are intersecting, so it's being connected together, but also they want to try and get apart. So how I deal with that is I would do that and then put another pole, a pole that has a dynamics tag. I'll call it ends. Another dynamics tag turned off. It can just extend a bit further, so it looks like it penetrates this the car body, but it's not actually being registered as anything. Just make sure that's turned down a little bit. So now you do it. Not 100% happy. I think we need to turn the mass down of these a tiny bit. They're jiggling around a bit. I need to figure out why that is. Maybe it's... we turn this up a bit. And for now, let's just turn off braking force. So yeah, that's better. Just have to turn up the stepso frames and everything. I might just turn this down as well. Yeah, that's helped. And then we obviously need them at the top as well. Connect them to the roof. So we need to attach the roof there. It's starting to get a bit crazy. Let's see what's going on there. Something is up there, isn't it? What is it doing? I reckon it might be to do with the collisions. Still not happy though, it's feeling around. Maybe let's turn this up a bit more. It's helped a bit, but I don't like to have that too high because it quickly slows down. Ignore those poles flying around. I'm worried about this rocking here. Anyway, let's see how it goes. Yeah, something to do with the masses of it. I reckon maybe bring these poles up in mass again. So yeah, having this non-dynamic pole in the middle just means that we can still have these, the top and bottom connectors, ignoring collisions, and this pole in the middle acts as the visible pole that we'll see that connects the roof and to the main body of the car. But dynamics will ignore that bit, but it's still better than having the whole pole being able to go through the roof and the body of the car. So I think we can give that a braking force, probably have to be quite high. Yeah, I think it's got to be a lot higher, like even that high. And then, so for the front ones we need to do the same really. So make the actual dynamic pole somewhere like that. And if we just test it, ignore collisions off, that seems fine. And then the braking force, put that right up again. And so yeah, if we get ends with that. So the steering wheel's nice and easy. Got the steering group here, steering column, steering wheel. So that needs a dynamics tag. Just thinking. So what I reckon might be good is actually make the steering column a tad shorter. Just move that down there, so it's not intersecting the geometry. Like so, and we'll make another part of the pole, smaller part that then goes up into the actual steering wheel. So call this steering column upper. So that steering column can actually be just part of the main car. To be honest, we could just copy this whole group into there. And then these two need their own separate tags. Let's give them a mass of, let's say 4. Just give them a bit of damping. So this steering column upper needs to be attached to the main steering column, let's say there. So steering fix connector. So steering column to upper, ignore collisions, and let's give it some breakage force. See what's happening there, I wonder. So yeah, figured it out. I wasn't connecting it to the right, wasn't connecting this steering column connector to the right part of the car. I was connecting it to the steering column, but the steering column doesn't actually have a dynamics tag on it. I have to do it to the main body of the car. So that's now working. And then the steering wheel, we want a new connector. Call it the steering connector. So we connect the steering wheel to the upper column fix. Yeah, so I want the steering wheel to be able to break off in a crash, but you can't have the hinge connector being breakable, so you have to somehow have that linked to a breakable connector further down. Give this a spring as well, so when we do get the Stormtrooper in there and it's holding the steering wheel, it's not just spinning around. It's got some sort of spring to it. Bit of damping, wrong axis. There we go. Perfect. So that's all done, and the last thing is just the wheels. So if we now look at the wheels, so in this we've got the wheels group. Let's look at the back wheels first. So we've got the axle frame and the center of it. So these could actually just be brought into the, hang on, so let's just hide this one. Hide that one for now. And then we could split this one off actually. And then all these we can put these in the hierarchy of the main body of the cart, so it all registers under that tag. And then the wheels, so we've got the actual visible wheel here, and then a dynamic proxy, just a cylinder that's the same shape. So we add that tag to the dynamic proxy. Just make sure the mass, I reckon the mass has to be about 8 at least. Automatic tyres obviously have a high friction and a bit of damping in case they're flying off. Press play. Obviously not connected to anything. So what I also do is, within this wheel, I make another internal wheel. Let's just call this back wheel group. So what we call this one the inner cylinder and actually make that invisible when it comes to render. Give it the same tag. So this inner cylinder is going to connect check that square way around. Okay. Inner cylinder is going to connect to the main cart body. While I'm here, I think we need to move the axis of this main cart body up because I think it's confusing some of the connectors. And then so this middle invisible cylinder will use a hinge that will make the wheel spin, but then we want the wheel to also be able to disconnect, so we call this back wheel spin connector, and then this one back wheel fix connector. So this will fix to this inner cylinder using the fix connector. Both of them can ignore the collisions of each other, but this one we want to have a braking force. Let's put it on quite high. So we can then make that invisible so we just see the actual visible wheel. And the reason I use a proxy for the wheel is just because there's quite a lot of geometry that we don't want to have to we don't want the simulation to have to take into account and slow down. So that one's working, and if I was to disable that, oops, that's not cool, that's not what we want, but that's not what will happen when that breaks from flying into each other. Then to the front, slightly, well, a very similar setup, it's just the geometry on this model car is a bit more tricky. But probably what we could do is it's all separated out, which and there's something that's got something back here. I think maybe that's making this quickly. I reckon it'd be something to do with that, is it? No, maybe not. So sometimes you have to use this tool to get access to all points. For some reason you have to use axis center tool rather than the center axis to tool. I'm not sure why, there must be a reason. So again, we can put all this in the main body of the car, and it's still doing what we want, and then concentrate on these inner wheels again. One thing I actually will do is, so the back wheels have an instance of the front wheel, so anything will change to this one. So what I want to actually do is put in like a fake axle in the middle, just so when the wheel flies off, it's not like, well, what was that even connected to in that empty wheel? Something like that would be good, I think. We don't really want it sticking out of the wheel. Something like that, and then maybe give it some caps. That's cool. It's just for extra detail, really. And then, so we can do the same as we treated the back wheel. So for this group, just front wheel group. quite. I'm just going to tilt the ground a little bit just so we can see if it is rolling or not. So no, it's not wanting to roll there. Maybe I might not have put the tags on these wheels, have I? No, that wheel isn't dynamic yet, so that's why it wasn't wanting to move. So that isn't rolling because these wheel fixed connectors aren't. That's just for the purpose of demonstration. We'll turn off the braking forces so you can see that it does actually roll. And then we have our car fully rigged and ready to smash. Perfect. So now we want to combine both the scenes that we've made. So I'm going to copy our stormtrooper into our golf cart scene. So the scales maybe look slightly off, we just have to, we can just tweak them easy enough. Just bring the golf cart properly down to ground level. The stormtrooper. Maybe actually it's good. One thing I'm going to do as well, I've got that there, is just these two scenes did have different settings in the dynamics tag, so let's settings, so let's just check they all act fine. Seems like they're alright. They're both gonna exist pretty well together. Yeah, that's good. So let's go ahead and get this guy to sit in the car. We can just drag him so his body is roughly in the right position. Might just drag his centre of mass up more towards his mid. So we just lean him back a little bit. And then for his legs, you also just want to position them. And then this is where it comes in handy, having the knee pivots. Maybe something like that. So we just have to bring these legs up a little bit so they're not intersecting the chair there. And just tweak the knees again a little bit. Just want the feet to look like fairly flat on the floor. We move the whole guy along a bit so he's sat by the steering wheel. The legs seem fine. Maybe he needs to lean forward a little bit, he's looking a bit too relaxed. Let's just get the arms in position and see whether we need to. So we have, what we could actually do is, well, just obviously concentrate on one arm for now. We can always duplicate that or do them both separately. Just see how that's sitting, just like that. So what's going on with the back of this chair? Need to bring that up to this part. Okay, so for his arm, Actually, I need to bring the hierarchy into there. So for his arm, we can twist this forward. It's going to be a bit of trial and error just to get it in place. So we want to follow get that roughly in place, and then we can bring this round, bring the elbow up a little bit. I think the whole guy needs to come forward a tiny bit. I think his head is a bit leaning too far back, so let's do it like that. And then what happens there? So what we need to do is attach some connectors just to keep him in place until the crash happens. So I call this sit, fix, connector, groin. Let's attach the groin to the main cart body. Change that to fixed. Ignore collisions. No, actually, we don't need to ignore collisions. So what does that do? Yeah, so that's good. And then I think we need to do the same for the torso. So just copy that there, call that torso. Just make sure that's the right one dragged in there. Cool. And then we just need one for the hand to the steering wheel. Just copy that down there, call that hand. And so we want the hand dragged in there, and then we want, this time we want the steering wheel dragged into here. So we've got the hand fixed connector here to the steering wheel. And then so for the other arm, we could either, it might be funny just to have the arm just hanging down like he's very relaxed about the whole thing. Just thinking, does this? Yeah, just so it looks like he's not fully paying attention to what he's doing, and that's cool. So now that's all set up in there, let's just double check that these, anything that has the word fix in it, so the sit, fix, for the torso, hand and groin, we need to make sure it has a braking force. Let's set it quite high, like 150,000. So now we've got our guy in his cart. We want to now set up the actual crash. So they're grouped together, get them in a cloner object. We want this on radial, just two of them. It's on the wrong plane, we want XZ. I'm going to twist this around 90 degrees, and then also in the transform as well, do 90 degrees counter. Let's put them 1000 radius, and then we need gravity to actually drive them forward. So I'm going to set the fall off shape to box, slide the fall off to 0, and then cover make sure the car's within this fall off box. About there's good. Probably want this pretty high, say 5,000. And obviously we need it to be in the right orientation, but it's not right now. It needs to be pointing that way, so it shoots the car off in that direction. See what that looks like. Yeah, so maybe a little bit strong. Just need to bring it down a tad as well. Let's turn it down to 3,000. Yeah, something like that. I think 4,000. So let's put that in a group, and then we obviously need to have the same for the other guy. And what I find helpful to do is within this cloner, just create some little kind of guide tracks just to help our cars get to the middle without swerving off. So we want a cube in a cloner object. So it's just got the size of the car. So it's just in between those two cubes, I mean, and then we can probably bring it up so it doesn't affect the wheels. We don't want it to not be knocking the wheels off or anything. So let's do it just like that. And then in this tag, just take off all the bounce and friction. Make sure that's on box just in case. And then let's have a look at that, because we can obviously just hide them from the renderer as well. Yeah, so that's great. Nice powerful impact there. So now what we need to do is create the actual looping endless collision, or the illusion of that anyway. So what we're going to do is this ground cube, we're going to clone that, so call this ground cloner, and we're going to make, let's say, 5 clones of that. And so yeah, the width of this ground cube is 250, so we want it to be, all these to be 250 apart. And then this same cloner, we'll call this car or crash cloner, and put our cars in there. And we can just have that set to 0 for now, actually. And then we want to create our camera group, so we'll call that null camera. And then underneath it, I normally create 2 nulls. One's the null that will move the camera, and one's the actual tilt of the camera. And if I get a camera under there, so I use this null to tilt the camera up. And within the camera focal length, I normally have it about 80 or quite high, because I like long focal length. Like quite close to the action would be nice. So at the moment, that the camera move null is directly where the first collision is going to happen. So if we say we want the first collision to happen at 100 frames, put the move null at 0 on that frame, and then if we go back to the beginning, we need to have that moved away. Let me just change this so we can see it easier. Okay, so I've put that the wrong way around. We need to have that going this way. Just so I remember, I'll do it for the cars as well. But so yeah, back to the camera, we need to move it on this first keyframe. So that's just out of view. But really, what's also useful to do actually is, because we've got the ground cube is 250 centimeters, we really want to be moving the camera in 250 centimeter chunks, really, just to make it easier for us. So if we just change that to minus 250 or plus 250, and then go into this S curve, make that linear, and then click on the position there and change these to continue before and after. And then we just need to move that. Sorry, let's go back into tracks. So at the moment we got the first collision lining up on frame 100. I think it might have to be frame 150. And then does that mean on the first frame it's fully out of view? Yeah, so that's great. So that means for the crash cloner, we want on 150, we want that to be 1. And then 50 frames earlier on 100, we want it to be 0. Let's just look at them both in the same graph together. So in the let's set this to step, and then I think we want that an offset repeat afterwards for 5 repetitions. I think that's what we want, 5 or maybe 4. So when we play this through now, once we get a line under frame 150, okay, that's not quite right, is it? Let's have a look what's going on there. So go into this view and have a look what's actually happening there. Something's not happy. Oh, that's why, because this they're spawning in the ground, so what we have to do is counter that. So obviously we could just put that on 1 and just bring them back up, because that's a minus 100. That's the problem there. So let's have a look again. When it gets to 150, they spawn. Zoom in. Next one. Spawns. So now we need to do this. So on frame 150, where everything's lined up, we want to actually move this gravity into the move null. That gravity is going to move with the camera. And the reason I do this is as the cars spawn, they're within that gravity boundary box. But as the cars move together and smash, the bits that, like the debris that flies off them, might end up flying back into these sections, and we don't want them to get thrown back by the gravity, because that'll just look unrealistic. So another step we have to do is make the boundary walls at the beginning and the end to keep everything contained within our one section that we're going to loop. So I've made this cube 100 centimeters and just have to align that perfectly there, and then we can make that wide as we want, quite high. And then so if we call that start, let's call it boundary cube, give that a tag, again box, no bounce or friction, and then we need to do the same for the end. So move that down to the end. And then we can make them invisible. And then what I'll do is I'll just set up a quick preview render that we can just, it just makes it easier to watch this. So we'll have it starting on the first frame of our first collision. Let's just put it on 300 at the end for now, or 350. Just a hardware preview. It's just what I use a lot of the time, just to have a very, well, it's what I use quite a lot of the time. Instead of playing it through in the viewport, it's just a good way of seeing how it's all coming together without worrying about it slowing down. So if I play that through, it's looking pretty good. So I think one thing, looking at that, one thing that we can do is just go to frame 150 when that our first one appears. I think we can just shift this a bit earlier so the crash happens more centrally, because obviously the crash is getting spawned on a 150, but really we want it to be in the middle of the frame, the two cars colliding in the middle of the frame at 150. So if we just shift this forward just 10 frames and then just double check on that frame that the gravity's aligned still, that's good. And while we're here, what we can do is make a little barrier similar to in my cars animations, where they don't just always collide into each other. There's a barrier for them to hit every now and then, or every other one. So we can put this cube in the ground cube, and we want 2 of them per thing, per section. And we want these to have their own tag, box, high friction, and then the mass, we can turn the mass right up so we get a very satisfying heavy object that the cars crash into. And then also what I'll do, so they're about 88 centimeters high, just set the center a bit lower so they have a low center of mass as well. And what I might do here is just do it so every other so it alternates between the two. So let's just play that through. I'm just going to give us some more frames here. See how that looks. Let's look at that. I think it's looking pretty good. So yeah, with these very high, with the high mass setting on these barrier cubes, you get a very satisfying feel of weight as they smash into it. The guys go flying over the handlebars. So now we can go ahead and start setting this up for rendering. So before we set up the render, we just need to make sure that we've got this cached. Let's go ahead and do that, speed it up a bit. And now that's cached, we'll just have a quick look. Just do a full hardware render of that, just to make sure it's all looking good. Let's just set that rendering. Yeah, it's looking pretty great. So just one thing is we need to just make sure when we render it that this part is fully out of frame at the end of the render. So it's just, I reckon, just put that to 550. Yeah, that's good. Let's just be safe. Let's put 560. So when it comes to rendering, I normally use Redshift, but obviously it doesn't really matter. It works with any renderer. So what I'll do is I'll make a plane object that is just huge, and then bring that down by like a micrometer. And then for that plane, we can just hide that actually, but we want to put the compositing tag on, or the equivalent in whatever renderer you're using. It can still be seen by the camera. Let's make a floor texture. Just turn off reflection for now. Just a bit of a grey one. Put that on the ground cloner as well. And then obviously in the render settings, change to standard, got the object buffer in there. And if I just render frame 150 for now, so you've got that object buffer. If we go on a few frames, got the background isolated. And so obviously the easiest way to light the scene is with an infinite light, and I'll show you why. I'll just do that quickly for now. And just make sure I just put shadows on as well. So yeah, I just put the shadows on hard. So you want the light, the main source of light going directly from the top. So obviously when you get the edges, when you get this edge in the comp, you want it to be as seamless as possible. And if there's shadows that are falling off over that edge, obviously when we duplicate up in comp, those shadows are going to be cut off. So a shadow falling straight down is great. And then obviously you can use a HDR in addition to that to get some nice lighting and effects in there. So another thing you can do is actually have, and this is how I did the cars video, you can have say an area light moving with the camera. So for example, when we get to that part when the first crash happens, we can move into this side view, might be good, and position this light so it lights up each crash as it happens, and then obviously move with the camera. So you don't get the problem with the light. So for example, when you get to the end, you're not going to have a problem with any shadows being cast off this edge here, ruining the look of the seamless repetition. But obviously at the other end, this light will be casting shadows that way, causing a seam. You'll be able to see the seam here where the shadows are cut off from the next repetition. But obviously the camera can't really see much of that. So that helps a lot. And one other thing you can do, which I did with the motorbikes video, is, let me just turn the light off for now, change this view mode. on the ground cubes, I'll just delete that one for demonstration. We can copy this and call this kind of side or curb cube. Just raise it up a little bit, 7.5 or something, and make it narrower. And then move, well, even narrower than that, let's put 25. And then move it to, let's do the top view, do it properly. Move it to the top edge. So each section has a little raised barrier, which is almost also dynamic, and it just means that creates a clearer edge for each track, and when it comes to duplicating it up in comp, this raised edge will do wonders to hide the seam between each repetition. So I'll do a render of that and show you what I mean, but let me just I'll resim this so we can see how that the cars interact with those curves as well. So when we play that through, see those curves react in the simulation too. And it's kind of just as fun because you get certain geometry that they can fall against and interact with. It'll just go a long way to making the final animation a lot more convincing when we dupe it up. So I'm going to go ahead and set up in Redshift the exact same way. You can obviously render it however you would normally render something, and then we'll dive into using the beauty and the object buffer to comp it. So now we're in comp, we've got the our rendered pass, the beauty pass, and the floor object buffer. So we want to create a comp with that sequence first. Just call this sequence. Bring in the floor as well, and then we need to do the Luma inverted map. So we've got our isolated layer. Looking good. And then we want to keep that as a pre-comp, and then put that in a new comp, call this loop. And so here's when we start duplicating this layer. So I'll start on frame 200. I'll just normally just do this by eye, it's fairly straightforward. So duplicate that layer, and the lower layer I'm just going to drag back in time so it connects seamlessly here. So I just zoom in and just zoom into the timeline as well, and just edge it by eye, really. Oops. So yeah, that's one layer. And I'll just do another one to cover this start section as well. So it's just repeating that process. So I just want to do the same for this one, just zoom in here and into the timeline. There we go. And then if I zoom out again, I'll do one more here. So I'm now dragging the top one forward in time to kind of match this up here. Just do the same, zoom in here and here. Just tweak it in the timeline. There we go. There we go. So that's cool. And then what I would do is, so say this is our first frame. When these guys are just about to come in. So if I go, it's going to be roughly 250 frames, is it, till that happens again? So yeah, so it's the same moment here. So if I just go back to the frame before, which is this one, end the comp there, trim the comp, and then play that through. There we go. You've got your fairly seamless loop. So there is a moment, well, for starters there's a moment here where one of the poles starts to go a bit crazy, but that would be in the sim. We just need to turn the damping up a bit if we were to go back and do that properly. And then we also get in a tiny bit of a, you can see a tiny seam here that you would be able to fix and comp a little bit with a bit of masking if you wanted. And you can see it here as well. So how I kind of combated that in the car video is just have the overall lighting quite dark, and the main source of light is only the light that's tracking with the camera. In this render there's a bit of a fill light as well, so that's why you're getting these shadows. That's looking good. So you've got the seamless loop, and then for Instagram I would normally, well, this is running at 10 seconds at the moment, so I call this comp, well, let's just call it render for now. I would normally do about, well, for an Instagram video, about 20 seconds. Instagram has this annoying thing where on every loop there's an awkward pause moment, so you want the video to kind of have as many inbuilt loops as it was within the export, and don't rely on Instagram just replaying one loop because it never looks good. So yeah, that's looking cool. I'll just show you one other thing. So I did another render with the curb cubes that I mentioned in the last part. So what I'm going to do is just replace these render files, and then I'll show you. So yeah, in this one I rendered it with these separating curb cubes to kind of demonstrate how it's a little bit of a cheat, but it makes it a hell of a lot easier to make a seamless loop. So if we do go into the loop, I'll show you how that looks. Obviously I rendered this very poorly, like it looks dark and horrible, but just for demonstration purposes, you can obviously, it doesn't have to be these plain materials, it could be a planetary surface or something like that. You don't even have to have these as flat cubes, or you could have certain rocks or something in between each lane, or these blocks could be kind of lunar rocks instead of perfect cubes. So there, you'd be quite hard pressed to see where the seams are. I don't think you'd ever realise, because these help so much. So that's just something to bear in mind if the certain scene you're working with doesn't allow, or the lighting you want, it's really tricky to get that seamless point. This does the job. So now we've got our loop, looking something like this, and then we've also got the version with the lanes as well that I just showed. Both extremely satisfying to watch. And obviously, like I said, with this one you can create, these don't have to be lanes and blocks, that can be more organic looking geometry. But yeah, kind of take this and run with it and have fun with it. And yeah, so hopefully that's been fun, and now you can create your own dynamic, endless simulations, either with these models or with any models of your choosing, really. Yeah, look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Cheers.